may have noticed, Donald Trump has been resorting to some wild lies about my record. You may have seen me just pulled out of our debate. I hope he reconsiders, because we have a lot to talk about.
Vice President Kamala Harris at a fundraiser last night in Massachusetts, putting Donald Trump on notice. She is ready to debate. Joining us now, Mitch Landrieu, National Co-Chair for the Harris campaign. Good morning, sir.
Hey, you guys.
All right, Mr. Mayor. You know, once a mayor, always a mayor, as my mama likes to say.
True.
Can we just discuss Mr. Mayor, what was the decision to now have cameras at the fundraisers? It had been as my understanding, long-standing policy of going back since the last campaign, that there were not cameras at fundraisers, but there were reporters, print reporters. Anything to this decision to actually now allow the cameras inside?
Well, there are two things. The more you see Donald Trump, the less you like him. The more you see Kamala Harris, the more you like her. So let's have more of it. You know, I was watching those clips of President Trump. I mean, that is an old, tired, grumpy dude who is just cray-cray. He can't hardly say anything that makes any sense anymore, and I think that they ought to really be concerned about his mental acuity and the choices that he's made in their life. You know, last Sunday, all of a sudden, when President Biden decided he wasn't going to run again, the vice president stepped into this race. I mean, she roared into it. She took off like a rocket ship, and she has the pulse of the nation in her hands, and she had one of the best weeks that we've seen in politics in the last 50 years. Raised $200 million. We have 150,000 new volunteers. We had over 2,000 events across the country yesterday, and she's ready to go. Of course, as you know, the President Trump, who was Mr. Anytime, Any Place, is now looked on his calendar and realized that he had something on that day, and so he can't debate it because he's scared now. So, you know, we'll see how it works out.
So that's the question. How will it work out? I mean, look, you've got a number of factors that are evolving. Simone and I were just talking about the fact that, you know, the October surprise hasn't even happened yet, right? But we had a little October surprise in July with the shift in this campaign and the changing of the landscape. It clearly has thrown the Trump campaign off. But the reality of it is you're going to be in a space now in the next 100-day stretch where you're on the ground and you're organizing. Give us a sense, Mitch, what that looks like over the next 100 days for this campaign, which literally, I think it cannot be lost on folks. You are standing up, even though you're taking on a lot of the Biden stuff operationally and some of the infrastructure, you're still having to stand up a presidential campaign with her branding, her name, her people, et cetera. How does that play out for you guys right now, and how are you feeling about it?
Well, Michael, thank you for that. Of course, you've seen the last week was historic. It was almost a perfect transition. And, of course, as I said just a minute ago, we had a better week than almost any other campaign in the last 50 years due to the incredible ability for the vice president just to really kind of hold the pulse of the nation in her hands. In many ways, this campaign, the Biden-Harris campaign over the last year, with her participating and organizing, it was built for this moment. We always said it was built for a ground game in the last 100 days. We have 1,000 offices across the swing states. They're still there. We're integrating all of our teams. It seems to be working really, really well. But be clear about this. This is going to be a very close race. I think Stuart Stevens is a really smart guy. He's a very reasonable, thoughtful, conservative white man. He understands that the language that Donald Trump is using is going to turn off a lot of people because the vice president wants to include everybody. The future is about all of us. We're all better together. It is, in fact, about the future. Every race that wins is about the future. And, of course, we're not going back. And she's going to be there to fight for the middle class. She's going to be there to fight for freedom. And, of course, Donald Trump makes it clear every day how incredibly important this fight for democracy is by continuing to say that if he gets elected again, we're not going to have any elections in the United States of America. That is a threat to every single American, and this vice president is going to stand in the breach and make sure that doesn't happen. But she is an underdog. This is going to be a very close race. It's going to be one on the margins. It's going to be one in the swing states. So everybody has to put their shoulder to the wheel because this is really simple now. The people of America have to make a choice, and the choice that we're going to make in the next 100 days is going to dictate where the United States and the people of America stand and the opportunities that they have for the rest of this century. And the choice choice could not be clearer. You have a prosecutor versus a perpetrator. You have a person that wants to go forward rather than go backwards. You have a person that wants to protect your freedom as opposed to a person that says, no, you can't come out and play with me. I want to take everything that you have. And oh, by the way, I'd like to be a dictator, and I really meant it. And so I think the people of America are really poised, but have to be focused in on how critically important for everybody is to go out and vote, because she's the underdog. We have a pathway to go, but she's doing great. And my guess is that we're going to do pretty well on Election Day.
Mr. Mayor, it's so interesting to hear you lay out that contrast, because it is so sharp and it is so clear, and it is in such contrast to what we are seeing from Republicans who are really struggling to figure out how to land a punch against the vice president. This is from Politico about the GOP struggling to attack Vice President Harris. The breadth and lack of cohesion in the Republican assault on Harris reflects the newness of her candidacy, but also the difficulty GOPers are having adjusting to a contender who cuts a different profile than the 81-year-old white male incumbent they'd been planning a run against for years. As those attacks continue to be launched, racist, misogynistic, to what extent does the campaign actually fight back and engage on those attacks, and in what case is it really about sort of pivoting to this bigger message that you are selling, which is it's not about me, it's not about Vice President Harris, it's about the future of this country?
Well, I'd say a couple of things about that. First of all, they're not ready for her because they didn't take her seriously because she's a black woman, because that's how Donald Trump thinks. But what they forgot to do was to look at the fact that she was a celebrated prosecutor that put away drug dealers and sexual abusers like Donald Trump. They forgot to look back and find out that she was the Attorney General and ran the largest law firm in America, where she put away business frauds like Donald Trump. They forgot to look at the fact that when she was the senator, that she fought for reproductive freedom, which Donald Trump has ripped away from women in America, and now calls it radical to think that women should make choices about their own bodies. They forgot to watch the work she did as vice president when she went to the Munich conference and represented the United States of America around the world, and the fact that she is really ready. Instead, he picked a vice president that's only been in office for 600 days, isn't real because now people don't know who he is, and isn't ready. That goes to Donald Trump's inability to pick people that can actually run the country. Remember, 17 of his cabinet secretaries quit and are now begging us not to put him back in office. I think that's something that reasonable, thoughtful Americans who consider themselves in the middle should consider, because they don't want this country destroyed. And we're all patriots, but we've got to grab the country. You just have to make the right decision in this right moment. History is calling you. Let's not let it pass us by. Let's grab it and let's go forward.